Hi guys, I hope you're doing fine. I'm Milas from Cyrux, and in this video we want to build a new model rocket, the magnificent Sirius. Let's rock it! Those of you that follow my channel and watched the last couple of videos know that I launched the Long March model rocket a couple of times.
First, let's have a look at the last flight of the Long March. 3, 2, 1, ignition. As you can see, the flight didn't end as planned. The parachute was deployed way too late and it was torn off from the quads.
Or 3 times to be more precise. But I will not launch it anymore for a couple of reasons that I explained in the last video. Currently I'm building my own rocket because I want to design and fly my own model rocket. And of course I'm working on a thrust vector control. At the moment I'm trying different designs like this one here, this thrust vector control I found on Thingiverse, and I'm trying it out to figure out what works good and what doesn't work so good. And at the end I want to develop and build my own thrust vector control. But until I'm finished with my own model rocket, I cannot launch it. Of course not, it has to be finished first. So there will be no rocket launches. But this is a rocket channel, so we need some rocket launches, don't we?
I mean, yes, the Long March is a beautiful rocket, but it cannot be my last. Or in other words, until my own rocket is ready to fly, we want to see some other rocket launches. But I think the time had come for the Long March model rocket to retire. Maybe we see it again in the future, but in a bigger scale.
And this is the exact reason why I bought 2 model rocket sets. So this is the Sirius model rocket or model rocket set. There are different parts delivered in that package. There is the large tube, I hope you see that. That will make the rocket body, and there is a nose cone, there will be parachutes and fins, and I will have to assemble that first before we can fly it, of course. And let's do it.
Okay, so the first thing we have to do is to unpack it. So here we go, and here we see a depiction of the different parts of the rocket. And yes, the first thing I did was RTFM. Well, I think some people may say you shouldn't need that, but I want to maximize the likelihood of a successful flight. Okay, so here we have the parachute system, we see the parachute, we see some cords and some tubes. Then we have some wooden objects that look like fins. And yes, they are the fins of the rocket. I actually was surprised of the material because I was expecting plastic or something. Or maybe something out of cardboards. But I'm not complaining, I like it actually. And here we have a large tube that will be the rocket body. And we see some slots on the lower part of the tube. We will need those later for the fins. And this is obviously the nose cone of the rocket. And it is about 15 centimeters long. And finally we have some stickers that we can put on the rocket, but I can tell you now that I didn't use them, besides the name Sirius. I don't know, I just didn't like the other ones. But forget the stickers, let's build the rocket now. So I needed that little tube that is actually going to be the rocket motor mount. And some other parts that we are going to attach to it. See that little slit here? We are going to push the motor clip inside it. After that I put some glue inside of the tube. And then I pushed this red ring inside of the motor tube, until it was even with the exit plane of the tube. And then I tied the Kevlar cord around the upper part of the motor tube. And then we need some more glue. And And then I took one of those bigger rings that is called centering ring in the assembly instruction. This ring will hold the motor tube in the center of the inside of the rocket, and we need 2 of them. After the first ring is put in place, we need some more glue for the second one. So the distance between where I positioned those bigger rings to the exit planes of the respective ends of the motor tube is around 1 cm. Okay, so the motor tube is ready. The next thing I had to do is to take the shock cord or rubber band and tie it to the Kevlar cord. I placed the cords next to each other and had to make sure that the ends are even. The distance between the knot and the end of the cords should be approximately 2 to 3 centimeters. And then I pushed the tight cords through the motor tube and pulled it from the other side all the way through. After that was done, the motor tube can be placed inside the rocket. So this is the position where we want that motor tube inside the rocket. So I put some glue inside the rocket. Okay, so that should be enough, and after that I pushed the motor tube inside the rocket. I had to make sure that the exit planes of both ends of the tubes are even. It came out not 100% even, but I think it's still okay. After that I took the cords and pushed it through the motor mount to the other side, just like I did before. And now it's time to take care of the fins. First I made some straight lines on the rocket with my pencil. Mounting the fins onto the rocket is actually very straightforward. You just have to put some glue on the fins and then just simply put them into place with respect to the marks done before. I would also suggest to support the connection areas with some additional glue. And then I had to repeat this process for the remaining 3 fins. And this is how it looked like after I attached all those 4 fins. Now I had to glue the little tube here onto the side of the rocket. It is the launch lock in which the metal rod of the launch pad will be put through. Okay, so first put some glue on it. And then I pushed it in the corner of one of those fins. After that I took my wood glue and I put some glue on each side of the joints of the fins. I wanted to make sure to get the maximum connection strength between the fins and the rocket, so I put a thin layer of glue on each side of the joints. And then I evened it or flattened it with my finger to make sure that the glue gets into all those corners and gaps. And now I have to wait until the glue dries. Meanwhile, I prepared the parachute. I have to be honest, I wasn't convinced of the material of the parachute. Again, I have to say, because it was the same with the first rocket. I was afraid it would tear again like it did before. Now I took those ring-shaped tapes and put them onto the marked places on the parachute. The purpose of those tapes is to strengthen the connection points where the cords are attached to the parachute. After the tapes were in place, I made some holes for the cords. After that, I tied each end of those cords onto one ring, always using 2 neighbored rings for one cord. And this is how it looks like. And now it's time to attach everything together, so the rocket to the nose cone and the nose cone to the parachute. So what I did was I passed the cords of the parachute through the eyelet of the nose cone. And then I made a loop with the cords through which I'm going to pass the parachute itself. And then I pulled the parachute to tighten it up. The next thing we need is the shock cord from inside the rocket. And the end of the shock cord is tied to the eyelet of the nose cone as well. And here we go, the rocket is attached to the nose cone and the nose cone is attached to the parachute. And this is exactly how we want it. In order to eject the parachute using a rocket motor, we need some protection wadding. The wadding will protect the parachute from the heat of the rocket motor. If you want to know how a rocket motor ejects a parachute, watch my video in which I explain how it works. And this is one of those crucial steps that will define whether a flight will be successful or not. In the first flight of my Long March model rocket, I folded the parachute in a not good way, which resulted in a crash, which prevented the parachute to expand correctly. So I adjusted my folding and hoped that this wouldn't happen again. But I'm actually still not 100% sure that this is the best method. After the parachute is folded, we can put it inside the rocket. But something catched my eye. As I mentioned, the first flight wasn't successful because all the cords were twisted together. Another reason for that was that the shock cord and the cords of the parachute were stored in the same place. That's why I decided to separate them, so I made a hole inside the nose cone. And then I pushed the shock cord into the nose cone. In this way, the shock cord and the cords of the parachute are stored separately, and I hope that this will prevent them to twist together. And the last thing we need to do is get on the stickers. But I only used the name because I didn't like the rest. And this is my second rocket, the Sirius. I really like the black.
Okay, so now that the rocket is built, are we going to fly it? Of course! Let's rock it!
Three, 2, 1, ignition. What we can see here is that the shock cord of the nose cone is not twisted together with the cords of the parachute. This is satisfying to see because the main reason why my first rocket launch failed was exactly because of that. But we can see that one of those cords is ripped off from the parachute. This is because the material of the parachute is very thin plastic, so it couldn't withstand the forces. And that's why I'm probably not going to use this kind of material for my parachutes in the future again. But the rocket itself looks good.
As you have seen, the rocket actually reached a good altitude, then the rocket entered into the descent phase, and finally the parachute was ejected on time. The rocket came down and touched more or less gently the ground. We saw a good launch, we saw the rocket reach a good altitude. I didn't use a very strong rocket motor, and because I just wanted to test how the rocket functions or if it functions, and we see that it was actually a good idea because of the parachute or the material of the parachute. But yes, I'm actually happy with how it went. Of course, I'm going to take care of that rocket. I'm going to fix the parachute. There are no damages at all. So I think I just have to fix the parachute and we're actually ready to go. Okay guys, that was it. I hope you liked it. In that case, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you want more of that content, and click the bell icon if you want to get notified in case of a new video. Until then, take care and don't forget to rock it. Yes!